Okay, it's 7 p.m. Hello, everyone, and welcome to December 5th, 2023 board meeting. Madam Secretary, please do the roll call.
Rich Maston,
Here.
Russell Webb,
Yeah.
Rachel Anger is here, Kathy Calhoun,
Here.
Pam Moser,
Here.
Paula Noble,
Here.
John Kalila. No John yet? Michael Shelton,
Here.
Kathy Dunham,
Here.
Kenny Curley,
Here.
Yukiko Hayata,
Yeah.
Pam Delabar,
Here.
Marilee Griswold,
Here.
Paulie Hootenimi,
Here.
Carol Krasnowski,
Here.
Ann Mathis,
Here.
Daryl Newkirk.
Here.
Shelley Perkins will be joining us later. Eileen Tartaglia,
Here.
James Simbro,
Here.
Matthew Wong. Is Matthew on the call? Is Eva Chen on the call?
No.
Is there any panelist whose name I did not call? Okay, I believe we have a quorum. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Rachel. Just an update on Shelley. She plans to attend somewhere between 8 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. In Shelley's place, we have Ed Raymond, who is willing to sit in as legal counsel. I need a motion and a second to allow Ed to do that.
So moved by Rachel.
Second, Daryl.
Okay, motion made by Rachel, second by Daryl. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Ed, you are in.
Yeah, John Clill is here now.
Sorry, I'm late. I'm getting in.
Okay, hi, John. Ed, you're in. Okay, thank you. All right. Let's do the orders of the day. May I have additions, corrections, and changes?
I have an addition.
Okay, Rachel.
And this relates to, I guess I can just say there's a central office report and executive session, which we need to move to the last item.
Okay. All right, Kenny Curley.
Yeah, I'd like to move number 11 to closed session.
Okay. And where would you like that move to? Because we have to communicate with judging program and protest.
Would like to have it right before the judging program.
Okay. Anything else, Kenny?
No, that's it.
Aline?
Yes, I just have an item that I want to add to new business regarding a format change for a show.
Okay. Format change to a show, and we're going to leave that in open session.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Aline?
No.
Okay. Kenny and Aline, please lower your hand. Daryl?
Can we bring up orders of day on the screen so we can see them?
Yeah, wait, let me just, sorry. I'm working on. Yes, sorry.
Okay. Daryl, did you want to add something or change? You're on mute, Daryl.
If we're going to move number 11 into closed session, we need to have a 2/3 vote on that.
Okay, I'll do that one separately. Do we have any other additions or corrections? Okay, let's do Kenny's request to move number 11, social media policy, into closed session. Kenny, I assume that's your motion. May I have a second?
Russell seconds.
Okay. Discussion? Kenny, give you the first option to discuss, and then you can have closing.
Sure, names may be mentioned, and I have some issues with that I'd like to ask council specifically as far as the application of a guideline versus a policy. And that's something Ed could chew on in the meantime. And I've also have some First Amendment concerns that I'd like to discuss with the board.
Okay. Daryl,
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my hand down.
okay. Does anybody else want to discuss this? Okay. Does anybody object to having this moved into closed session? Kenny, lower your hand. Does anybody object to moving this into closed session? Seeing no objection, this motion passes unanimously. Okay. I want to go back to the original list, make sure I have this correct. Rachel and Aline, please help me. We have central office moving to the end of executive session,
After agenda item number 17,
correct?
which
We
we do
have
not,
Aline adding to new business, a format change to a show. Correct, Aline?
Yes.
Okay, is there any other changes or additions? Okay, may I have a motion to accept the new orders of the day?
Also move, Daryl.
Thank you, Daryl.
Any seconds?
Thank you, Kenny. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 2, ratification of online motions. Rachel?
yes, that's me. I would like to move for ratification of motions 1 through 6. I believe they all carried, so it would be appropriate to ratify them as a block.
I need a second.
Carol.
Thank you, Carol. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objections, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Rachel. I'm going to go on to agenda item 3, judging program. Vicky
Okay.
Nye and Russell Webb.
Okay. I'll start.
Go ahead, Russell.
Okay, so it's a brief summary of what we did as a committee. The JPC has a Zoom meeting before each board meeting to discuss all the issues that would come up. The committee met on November 28th to discuss the judging program, open and closed session reports, and to review files for recommendation. We have 3 judges coming up that require a number of shows and cats judged. They met. Second is the current happenings of the committee. Working with several pre-applicants on requirements and checklists on how to achieve their goals. And we got the BAOS and JPC working on a budget for February 7th to the 11th on 2024. This is going to be held in Belgium, with Peter being the point and site contact. We contacted Kathy, who's going to put forward the budget with our budget committee. The leave of absence is none. We had 1 resignation, CFA Aubrey Judge. Yosaka Sada submitted her retirement letter from CFA's judging program, November 2nd, 2023. It was accepted with regret by the JPC. Sada from Tokyo, Japan, bred the Siamese under the category name of Sturfield and joined the CFA judging program 1999. As applications and advancements, there were no applications. The advancements were 3 regular judging program advancements and one associate judging program advancement. This is going to be presented in closed session.
This is Rachel, excuse
Go
me.
ahead, Rachel.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We do have something to add to the retirements and resignations, and
Okay.
while I have the floor, can I ask that we not read the report into the record? I think it's
Okay.
there.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
okay.
Who is the missing retirement?
I-
Rachel,
Who do,
Is Vicky on the call?
Vicky?
I am on the call. The Judging Program Committee through Ann Mathis received a resignation letter from Associate Judge Afsa Mishari, and it was accepted with regret. It was too late to get this into the minutes before they were produced for the rest of the board. Is that the one you're speaking of, Rachel?
Correct.
Vicky,
Perfect, thank you.
Vicky, what was the date of the resignation so we can get it in the record?
Effective December 1,
Okay, thank you.
2023.
Okay, thank you. Russell, continue.
okay. We have an apprentice, advance from apprentice shorthand to approval pending, which is Lynn Knight. Approval pending, Albury to approved. Albury is Olga Revneva, Olga Pronowski from Ukraine, and Jennifer Redding. Advance from associate judge shorthand trainee to shorthand associate judge is Ulrike Kronepi from Germany. And October 1st, we received the following complete applications. Hidri Kropel from US for specialty long hair, Izzy, Thailand for specialty short hair, and Elena Papagina, Ukraine guest judge with Rui, with CFA evaluations long hair, short hair. We had Brita Wynn School, which would be Barbara Yeager as the subcommittee chair, and this is the first in-person BAOS since COVID was held in conjunction with the international show.
Russell, can we not review the entire report, please?
Okay.
Just touch on whatever highlights and let's address any, you and Vicky can address any questions that come in from the board.
Okay. All right. So, Breeds and Standards Committee, we have an update and modified presentation. The budget for February 7th and 11th for 2024, we provided, asked Kathy Calhoun for some advancement on money. Future projections, we're working to ensure the debts for the BAOS. Planning for the next BOS is tentatively scheduled for February 7th and 11th. Time frame, December board meeting. Presented at the next meeting would be the update for the BOS in February. That's it.
Okay, Vicky?
You can move. For the guest judge.
That's it for the BAOS. So we've got the guest judging report, which is
Next.
actually, I want to make it clear that everybody understands that this report is actually only those that have been improved between the board meetings. The full list would be huge for me to publish each time. So this is just the approvals that we've done since the reporting of the ones from the October board meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Russell?
Okay. But what are we up to? The brief summary. The associate judges continue to judge shows. They work on requirements for the regular judging program. 2 trainees prepare video presentations, handling session, and advance in the associate program. We had 2 Zoom meetings held, 10/24 and 11/1. Were interested in associate judges and opened to the CFA judging program. 21 attended. The current happenings and action item, this will be presented in closed session. That's it.
Okay. Vicky, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nope. That's it. I think that's it for the judging program open session report, unless anyone has questions.
All right, we'll take questions right now. Pam Belabar?
All I wanted was the screen to be advanced so we can actually see on the screen what's being talked about.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Seeing no additional questions, thank you, Russell and Vicky, and the rest of your committee. We're going to move on to agenda item number 4, show rules. Ed Raymond, that's you. Carol,
Carol, yes, I would like to make a standing motion to accept all the proposed show rule changes as presented.
and can I have somebody doing a standing second?
Paula will do a standing second.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Carol and Paula. That saves some time. Okay, Ed?
Okay. The first motion may look familiar. It was originally presented at the October. Go back and clarify some of the language in 3.
Ed, your microphone is, you sound like you're in a tunnel or something. I don't know if you can. Good.
How's that?
That's better.
Much better.
I forget that Zoom defaults to the wrong mic in my system.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Thanks for pointing that out. As I started to say, the first item is something that you saw back at the October board meeting. It was tabled and it was asked to go back and clarify the language in 3.13 regarding guest judges and the fact that 2 guest judges or 1 guest judge and 1 CFA judge or 2 associate judges judging a ring does not equal a ring judged by a CFA judge. So I believe that the language was clarified. I had sent this out for comment, didn't receive any. So hopefully that means that it's okay.
All right, we'll get to the questions. Daryl?
So I have a question on 3.13, and that's for international division, the AJs / guest judges. So it says guest judge, but AJs are a half a judge.
Right.
Okay, so they can only do single specialty. So if you have an 8-ring show and you have 6 CFA judges and you have 2 associate judges, you've only got 7 rings. You don't have 8 rings.
That is correct. So the column that lists rings, and I see here how things got out of alignment. Hopefully in the PDF that I sent along, you can read it more clearly. It's really based on number of rings. So it's what we're talking about here is the number of rings being judged by a CFA judge or the number of rings being judged by a guest judge or associate judge. So 2 associate judges, a long hair associate judge and a short hair associate judge equals 1 ring.
Okay, so in this example where there's 2, that means there would be 4 associate judges, 2 longs and 2 shorts.
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure.
Yes, because you're talking about the number of rings being judged by those judges.
I got that, but your column header is associate judge and guest judge, and so it's confusing.
Yeah.
As long as we're on the same page, that's 2 rings of associate judges which would make it an 8-ring show.
Correct.
If it's 6 associate judges, to make it 3 in the case of 9 rings. Correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So for an 8 or 9 ring show in the international division, you would need 6 rings judged by a CFA judge. And the remaining 2 or 3 rings could be judged by any combination of guest judges or associate judges needed to complete both specialties in those rings.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure it was rings under that column.
Yeah.
In the case of associate judges.
The judging program committee asked that we include that associate judge / guest judge column into the show rules. They thought it would clarify things. Apparently right now it seems to be making them a little foggier.
Okay, Daryl, are you done?
I'm finished. Thank you very much, Ed.
Okay, Pam Delabar?
I actually had a question first. I do have questions on 3.13, but 3.02B, do we have defined anywhere what areas the associate judges have? Like we know we combined Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, I think. Do we have that anywhere specified?
In the show rules, I don't believe so.
Perhaps we can find some place to put that information. On to 3.13. This basically is used in areas where English is not used as a first or second language. I find this rather convoluted, and I talked to a few people and asked how they would read it, and everybody got confused, especially when we're talking about, CFA judges. And gee, does this mean that the points from the associate judges don't count, or the points from the guest judges don't count? Because when it starts talking about, hey, if you're not a CFA judge, then you're not really anything. I think that the whole matter of this rule can be basically described in the last sentence, which it says, last sentence, which we're not down to yet.
It's right there.
Keep scrolling down. It's on the bottom.
Keep scrolling.
All right, I thought it was all right. Oh, that
Nope,
one.
right there. The last sentence says any combination of guest judges and associate judges may be utilized once the minimum number of rings to be judged by a CFA judge or judged by CFA judges has been achieved. You don't need that column. We thought we did, but with that last statement, they know that they've got to have X number of CFA judges based by the rings. And then they can fill in with guest judges. But when you look through this, it's brought up questions where, people are saying, and God forbid our insurance company should say, well, since they're not considered CFA judges, do we have to cover them in case they're bitten or whatever? It really gets too many words are in there. And I am a high believer in the KISS principle, which is keep it simple, stupid. And I believe that we can really get this through by just cutting out all that extraneous verbiage and just using that last sentence in the what's presented here.
Okay.
Thank you, Pam. Daryl, did you have a comment or a question? Okay, Vicky?
I agree with Pam. This last sentence is really the gist of what we were going for. The problem we had with it before was that it required math. You told them how many rings of CFA judges, but again, it came to that problem of if you have a long hair CFA judge and a short hair CFA judge, they think that they've now got two qualifications there when that's really only one ring. We only put the AJ, GJ column in, and that would be ring of, and a ring being defined as either an all-breed ring or a long hair and a short hair ring. So I would be okay with removing that last AJ, GJ column if that is what's causing the confusion, as long as everyone follows that last. Any combination of guest judges maybe utilize once the minimum number of rings to be judged by CFA judges has been achieved. Because as Ed mentioned, it's not really judges, it's rings that are officiated by judges in that category.
Ed, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I can take this back if you want to table it again and work with the judging program committee to come up with some new language that hopefully is simpler and clearer, and bring it back in February.
Okay, Pam Delabar.
I would agree with it being tabled to get this squared away. And I tried to go through and come up with something that I was going to propose to you, Ed, and I just couldn't until I got to the last statement there on any combination, because the other is what gets people confused. The verbiage above that gets people very confused. Plus, we're in the, as I said, we're in the areas that use this the most are those that don't speak English as a first language. So I want, as I said, make this as concise and simple as possible. And that's my input.
Okay, Vicky.
Oh boy, I hate to put this off any farther. All that I would actually like to have removed is maybe that last column, if that's having the confusion. You want to remove more of the language up above. I mean, if this is going to cause this to fail at this point, yes, of course, take it back. I'd actually like to have it passed now and then just have the AJ/GJ column removed if that's a problem, because this was a space issue. We couldn't actually put AJ/GJ rings, and the same thing under CFA judge rings or define rings. It would make it even longer and more confusing.
Just for clarification purposes, Vicky, based on what I'm hearing from Pam, I don't think Pam agrees with that. She wants to simplify the wording and possibly get rid of the column. But we do have until February to finalize all the show rules. That will be plenty enough time for Arlene to get the updated show rules done. So I'm okay tabling this, assuming Carol and Paula are. Daryl, you had your hand up, then you took it down. Now you're back up. You have a comment?
No, I wanted to make the motion to table it till February.
Okay.
Pam will second.
Pam will second. Okay, Carol?
Yes, I'm in favor of tabling it as well.
Okay. Paula?
Sorry, had to get the microphone turned back on. Yes, I'm in favor of tabling it to where the rule when it comes out is as clear and concise as possible.
Okay, very good. Any further discussion? Any objections to tabling? Okay, seeing no objection, motion to table passes unanimously. Okay, we're gonna move on to number 2.
Okay. Number 2 is a motion to amend Rule 4.03 to reflect the role of the show scheduling committee in approving shows in regions 1 through 7. Takes the regional directors out of the picture and moves the responsibility to the show scheduling committee.
Pam Mosier, is this the one you wanted to comment on, or is it the next one?
It's the next one.
Okay. Any discussion? Kenny?
Sorry about the delay. Fellow regional directors from Region 1 and 7, you'll have absolutely no input, and it's not to impugn our present show committee decision makers. It's just too much power under one person's hand. Recently had a situation where I had a club from another region that wanted to come into an area because they were getting a free show hall, where we have 6 shows a year, and it would have affected a club that has been with CFA for 25 years. And they approved it. They had every right to approve it, but I had no way to object to it according to them, with the exception of that 403C is still in effect. This will take away any of regional directors' power. And I think we need to maybe rewrite this and at least get the input of the regional director. They know their territory better than anybody else. We need to have a say as to what shows can happen and where. Now, I understand the need for this, and I'm not against a show committee, but to me, there's just too much power without input from people who are elected in their certain areas. So that's my take. You may not listen to it, but I think it could come back and really hurt us in the future. Let me give you, for instance, if I decided to go against Garden State just because I got a bug, and I could schedule a show in the same facility a week before they were having their fabulous show. Would it make money? I don't know, but it certainly would affect the outcome of that show. And the Region 1 director would have no say as to whether or not. Now, it may end up going to the board, but does the board really want to make decisions for every show that's been objected to? This is what I see in the future. So I'm not going to support this. Thank you.
Kenny, before I call on Pam Mosier, does 4.03F, the last sentence, address your concern? Eileen, can you bring up 4.03F? It's at the very bottom.
All the way.
All the way. Oh, right.
F.
F. Last sentence, Kenny, does that address your concerns?
No, it does in a way, but as I said, does the board really want to spend a lot of time deciding whether or not these shows should go on? I think if we start this initially and include regional directors in decision making, it would be a better process. But to be left out totally and then having to go to the board, we may be voting on 5-6 shows every board meeting. That's my concern.
Okay. Pam Mosier?
Yes. Well, I don't agree with what Kenny's saying, because this does, it leaves the regional directors in the loop. If they do not agree with what we have done, then they have the chance to go to the regional director and ask them to bring it to the board. Now, I want to explain to you the process that Mary and I go through. We don't just willy-nilly say, oh, yeah, you can have a show or you can't. We go back and research every person's ask, and that involves going back maybe 2 or 3 years to see when shows were put on before, to make sure that they're not conflicting with somebody else. We're protecting each club's traditional dates. And then if we get complaints like we did in this instance, we go back to the person that wanted to put on the show. We let them know that there are, people are not, happy with them putting on a show. We try to reason with them. We ask them if they could go to another weekend. We asked them if they could do something else. Now, some of the issues that we have ran into, and let me tell you, this is not a popular position that I'm in here, because people get mad at you. I have been from a friend that I've known for 30 years, 40 years. They won't even talk to me anymore because I let another club put on a show that was 1,000 miles away. So the situation here is we go back, we try to, like I said, we reason with these people. They might not agree with it, but it comes down to if they want to do it and it's in the criteria that we set forth to this board, who approved the criteria. We're going by the criteria that you approved. So if, we cannot talk them and they don't want to do that and they still want to do it, then they do. On another hand, I had a club, a person that's put on shows that has, been with CFA for many years. And he wanted to put on a show, just a one-time show. People objected. They got all upset. And he finally just said, it's not worth it to me. He says, I've been in this association for 30 and 40 years. And if people are going to go like this, he says, I don't need to do this anymore. He says, I'm 75 years old. Forget it. I just won't put on a show. So there's other ramifications just besides the people that think it should be on their side. Now, also in the situation that Kenny's talking about, these people that was 3 weeks apart. And why should anybody get favoritism to be in a special location? I mean, I know a club on the East Coast that there was a show 2 weeks or 3 weeks ahead of them in the same location, and they did fine. I mean, it was a LCWW show that was put on in the same building. And 3 weeks later, they got a huge gate. They weren't hurt at all. So, it's not like I'm just approving these things. We research what we're doing. I just wanted to make sure you guys know just what is involved in doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Kenny?
Yeah, Pam, I don't mean to impugn the work that you're doing. I know you're doing the best you can, and I know it's an unpopular position. But I would support this if you would at least ask for regional director input.
Pam Mosier, do you want to comment on Kenny's comment?
Well, if that's, I mean, like I said, this is not a power situation that I'm in here. But I mean, if that's the case, Kenny, we might as well just go back to the way it was, because that's what you're saying. If you want to be involved, that's fine. I mean, if you guys want to make the decisions, I'm A-okay with that. I mean, I thought this would be an easier way. You maybe don't think that. It's what the board wants. I mean, it's no skin off my back which way you guys want to do this.
Kenny?
Yeah, one last comment. Again, I'm not worried about Pam Mosier. You've been around for a long time on this board, I think 10 years. You know how things work, and I know you to be a fair person. I'm worried about the next person down the road. And this is what I'm very, very concerned about. I'd like to have regional directors have an input. And if we can table this, go back and add at least input from the regional director that's going to be affected, I mean, I could get behind it. But again, we need checks and balances. We can't allow, one or two people to have complete power. And as I said, I have trust in you, but I don't know what's going to happen down the road.
Okay, there's 5 other regional directors from regions 1 through 7. Can we hear from any of those 5? John Kalila?
I have no problem the way Pam's been handling it. So far, I see no problem with the show scheduling.
Okay, thank you, John. Russell, you are not the regional director. You are acting as the board liaison for the region. Go ahead and make your comment.
I kind of agree with Kenny. One or two people having a lot of power does, I think, at least involve us somewhat, each region, so that we have a say on what, if it's too close to our date, because region 1 especially, I mean, there's clubs, but maybe 4 or 5 clubs put on shows. and we can't even get a good count anymore. So I would think that we should have some kind of input. And I do trust your Pam, but as Kenny says, you never know who the next one is. That's my comment.
Thank you, Russell. Paula?
Yeah, well, I see where Kenny's coming from, and I do understand that. I know from my region, what a lot of the clubs have done here, if they wanted to do something that was different, or if they hadn't been able to get a location for a couple of years and now they are able to find one, they've come to me to kind of guide them into what kind of dates they need to be looking at. So that's when I go out and I look at what Pam and Mary have got out there so far to see what kind of distances that would mean, and then offer, okay, you can try this date, or I would recommend this date, and give them some options so that when they approach Mary or Pam, and in our case it's Pam, when they approach Pam with their request, they already kind of have an idea of where they're headed, what is going to work not only for our region, but for surrounding regions as well. And they have some ideas of what they want to do. I've kind of started paving the way a little bit. That's where I cut off and let it fall on the show schedulers. But yes, I'm still having input, and I like that. And the clubs like that.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Mike?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much in the same position that Paula is. Even though I have explained to people that the regional directors don't have necessarily approval authority over the dates anymore, that goes through the committee. I'm still willing to talk to them and give them input on this is what I think will fly, or this is what I think won't fly. And just within the last, 10 days, Pam, you come to me because you knew there were rumblings about a certain show. So Pam came to me to get my input and interface with the clubs to try and make sure everybody's voice was being heard. So again, I do understand Kenny's concerns, and yeah, who knows what we'll have in this position in the future. But also, if we have somebody in this position in the future who we think is abusing the authority, then the board can do something about that too. So I think we're okay for right now. It seems to be working, at least in this part of the world.
Thank you, Mike. Kathy Dunham?
Yeah, Pam and Mary have been very cooperative in Region 6 with working with me when it's necessary. But I do understand where Kenny's coming from, and I do like the idea of at least, the regional directors having some input on what's going on. Sometimes we know things that Mary and Pam may not know. Mary living in my region is certainly a benefit for the scheduling committee, at least in my region, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that she will be on the committee. So I understand both sides, and Pam and Mary have worked very well with us, but I still think the regional directors need a little bit of input and a little bit of control, just so that the clubs know, because it's been a challenge, honestly, to get the clubs to understand who to go to. So, while I am like Paula and Mike, and in the fact that I might give some input and then direct them to the committee, it's been a challenge to get them to understand. So that's all.
Thank you, Kathy. Daryl?
I think an easy solution to this, and I think Pam's been doing it according to what Paula and Micah said, that if there's a show that's come up, and I'm assuming this is for non-traditional dates that you're approving. Is that correct, Pam?
Right. I mean, if there's a traditional date, there's nothing that needs to be done.
Exactly. So my question was, I know the regions have held traditional show date calendars. Is that going to go away and there's just going to be a national traditional show date calendar? I know it's not part of the proposal, but I would just like that answered.
it's already out there, Daryl. It's on the website, traditional dates. When we first did that, Mary and I went through everybody's traditional date. We looked back all the way till 2018 to make sure that the clubs were doing their 2 years, but due to COVID, there was some issues because we had to make sure that they still carried those over because we kept extending that they could carry that traditional date due to COVID for it was like 3 or 4 years. And so we had to make sure that was, looked at. So we actually, when we originally did the traditional date schedule, we went back probably 5-6 years and made sure those traditional dates were all correct. And we keep worksheets on all of these to make sure that they are.
Great,
Thank you,
thank
Pam. Ed, is there anything that comes to mind based on the information you received from Kenny that should possibly be added to this show rule?
Well, I think that there is in paragraph C, a mention of before granting permission, the show scheduling committee shall notify all subscribers of the CFA news announcements or similar CFA managed email lists of the license request. We could add the show committee shall notify the impacted regional director and all subscribers of the CFA news, etc. If you're just looking for a notification to the regional director, that might do it.
Kenny, will that satisfy, or do you mentioned tabling this and coming back, will that satisfy your concern?
Well, let me raise my hand so I'm proper. All I see is that I don't really need permission from the, all I'm asking for is input. I'd like to offer input. They get a request from somebody in my region and they bypassed me, then I'd like to have input. Normally, when a new show comes up, they will, as they have done other regional directors, and we will direct them, to a show date that is kind not only to the region, but I'm always cognizant of shows that they have to go against. Because putting on a cat show is a business decision, and I want them to be successful. And I'm certain that all the other regional directors feel the same way. We don't want to be shut out of the process. I don't want to be shut out of the process. I'd like to have input. I don't really necessarily need to give my permission because that criteria has already been settled. But I would like to have input so that they realize there may be situations that they're not aware of from a regional perspective. So that basically is it. You don't have to really just change some verbiage a little bit to not necessarily require, but have the show committee, if it's a non-traditional show date, and they haven't already spoken to the regional director, that we get some input to help both parties decide. That's pretty much what I want. I don't want just to add something, because again, my worry is that we'll get a situation, because I know a lot of these clubs want to put shows on, and there's just not enough calendar days in order to do that. But, our aim is to have these shows be successful. And I think that having input from elected officials is very, very important.
Okay, Pam Mosier.
Yeah, we want the shows to be successful too. That's why we look at every aspect we can to make sure to let them know that, this could make their show unsuccessful. And Kenny, in the situation that you're talking about, we did get your input. You provided input, about this. Russell said something, but the thing of it is that because a club, this is the situation here, and especially in this situation, one club had come to us before and wanted them to rule in favor of them when somebody objected to theirs, and they were good with that. But when we were trying to let this other club, which met all the criteria to have the show, that same club came to us and threw a fit because they were coming into their area. You know, that's not right. I mean, who says that one club has the right to be in a certain area all the time? I mean, that's not right. I mean, that would be like I said, okay, I'm in Portland, Oregon, so no other club can come in, put a show in my location because I own that location. And that's basically what was said. So I have a problem with. I think that's favoritism, and I don't do favoritism. I go by the rules. Thank you.
I'm going to wrap this up. We're going to go to Carol, then Ed, and that's the end of the discussion. We're going to make a decision if this is going to be tabled or I'm going to call this motion. Carol?
Yes, I have a recommendation for a slight change in the wording that may address Kenny's concerns without a major rewrite of this whole rule. If I may just say what that might be, it's in the middle of C, right after the strikeout section, and the wording would be, before granting permission, the show scheduling committee shall notify the appropriate regional director and all subscribers of the CFA news announcements, etc. And then the next sentence would read, regional directors and clubs wishing to provide comment, etc. It's just adds regional directors to the mix without rewriting the whole rule.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Ed?
I was actually going to suggest the exact same thing that Carol just did.
Okay. Kenny?
Let's vote on it.
Okay. So Carol, you're amending your motion to include that wording,
Yes.
and sorry, I forget who had the standing second. Is that Paula?
Paula has a standing second, and I second it.
You agree with?
Yes, I agree with the changes.
Okay. Does anybody need a reread of what Carol just stated? Any further discussion? Are we going to have objections? Raise your hand if there's anybody objecting. Okay, then that change in that motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to go on to number 3. Ed?
Okay, actually, number 3 should be looking to add 4.03G, not F, specifying the required distance between shows of various formats. This came originally from the floor at the annual this past year, was brought forth to the board in October. Originally, it was 6 rings or fewer. The board indicated a desire to make it 4 rings or fewer, so it's been rewritten to in the language currently shown.
Okay, Pam Mosier, this is the one you want to speak on?
Right. I don't agree with this. From trying to make schedules for these clubs, cutting. I know it's 5 rings or less, but still cutting that down to 200 miles. I can only imagine these other clubs throwing a fit if they're coming in and they're only 200 miles away from their show. I don't care if it's only a 4-ring show, or I guess it could be a 5-ring show. I think it's going to cause a lot of issues. So I do not agree with this. I will vote no on this.
Okay. Daryl?
I agree with Pam on this one. I put a big question mark beside this whenever I read it. And I understand the concept, but if you got a 6-8 ring show and a 4-ring show 200 miles away, it's going to take entries away from the other club. So I understand that, we need more small shows, but not up against someone else on the same weekend. I just I don't think that's right.
Ed, this came from the delegates at the annual, correct?
That is correct.
And they did, the Havana Brown Fancier stated 200 miles.
That came out in the discussion. There was actually no actual motion made at the annual. There was a lot of discussion, and I tried to boil that discussion down into a show rule.
Okay. All right.
200 miles was what was being discussed as the distance for a small show.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'm gonna, Carol?
Yes, if we decide not to approve the 200-mile rule, we should still leave the section regarding 500 miles or 805 kilometers, because that's not in the show rules currently. And I think it would help people understand the unwritten rule that we had previously would now be a show rule.
Okay, so I'll call the motion on as it's written. And if it fails, then Carol, you can bring back the revised motion that eliminates the first paragraph.
Okay,
Is that correct?
That sounds good. Thank you.
Ed, is that correct?
Yeah, I think we'd have to alter the second paragraph so that this would provide for no shows, including to take away the five or more ring qualifier, if you're going to keep that.
So that would have to be rewritten.
We'd have to amend it.
We'd
Yes.
have to amend it. Okay.
But it's easy to do.
Okay, Daryl?
You can divide the question. It's two parts. So there's a parliamentary procedure to divide the question.
Ed, you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, then I'm going to divide it in two parts as Daryl is suggesting. We're going to call the motion on the first paragraph, 4.03 G. Ed, did you have another comment?
No, sorry.
Okay. If you're in favor, as written, raise your hand. Rachel, I have nobody raising their hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Daryl Newkirk, Pam Delabar, Kenny Curley, John Clulla, Marilee Griswold, Russell Webb, Mike Shelton, Yukiko Hayata, Holly Hootenami, Carol Kuznowski, Ann Mathis, Kathy Dunham, Kathy Calhoun, Rachel Angler, Paula Noble. Lower your hand. If you're an abstention, raise your hand. Rachel, I have no abstentions.
Thank you. That's 0 yes, 17 no, 0 abstentions.
Okay, that motion fails. Okay, Carol?
Yes, for the second paragraph, I would recommend that we simply change the wording to read no show, including 2 one-day shows held in the same location, in the same, et cetera, et cetera. I think as long as we remove of 5 or more rings, that should solve the issue.
Ed, do you concur?
I do.
Okay, discussion? Objections? Seeing no objection, that motion passes unanimously. Okay. On to number 4.
Number 4 is a request from the International Division to amend Show Rule 4.04 so that shows in mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau will be licensed at least 21 days in advance rather than the current 14 days.
Kathy Calhoun, do you want to comment on this?
Sure. We surveyed the area coordinators, and talked about 14 days versus 21 days versus 30. We landed on 21 days. There would be a potential of moving to 30, so we would be aligned with the balance of, regions in future years, but we would like to just take it one small step at a time. And 21 days would be an improvement from where we are as far as timing to for the central office, timing for show flyers and all, etc.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Kathy. Any further discussion? Any objections? Okay, seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Add on
Thank
to
you.
add on to number 5.
Number 5 is a minor amendment to 6.21 to amend the rules for when payment is due for a show to include situations where entries are submitted online. The current rule only dealt with faxed or email entries.
Okay, discussion? Objections? Seeing no objections, motion passes unanimously. Number 6.
Number 6 is an amendment to Rule 13.11 to try to simplify the late fee collection procedure, which currently requires 3 or 4 mailings using certified mail, and requires the club to estimate the cost of all those mailings. Entries are coming in primarily via online entries. They all have to have an email address. This amendment proposes to utilize email as the way of communicating with exhibitors who are have not paid. Central office has agreed to set up a dedicated email box that clubs would CC as they're communicating with the exhibitors to provide the appropriate notification to central office.
Okay, before we go any further, I just want to announce Shelley Perkins is now in attendance. Ed, you're relieved from legal counsel.
Thank you.
But you're not relieved from show rules because you still have 11 more to go after this one.
Bummer.
So we're going to get back to number 6. Any discussion? Any objection? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Shelley, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. I am here.
Okay, great. Ed, number 7.
All right, number 7 begins a package of show rules changes to implement OCP as a permanent format. Number 7 adds a definition of an OCP ring to 2.39.
Okay, discussion? Objections? Kenny?
Yeah, I just want clarification. When we get down to number 10, it looks as if we can skip down to number 10, which is going to affect this entire rule. All right, that's good. The all breed rings. All right, let's take me as an example. I'm doing an OCP ring and an all breed ring at the same show. The way I read this rule, and correct me if I'm wrong, if there were 85 cats entered, and I'm doing a top 10 in an OCP ring, there's 85 cats entered. This rule here tells me I have to final 5 long hairs and 5 short hairs in my OCP ring. The intent of the OCP ring, in my mind, is to have the ability, for instance, if it's a weak long hair or a weak short hair champion, to put more than. Obviously, mechanically, when you do your regular all breed final, those cats have to be in the same order. But am I incorrect in assuming that we are required to put up, say, for instance, top 3 long hairs and top 3 short hairs? Is that the way this rule is written? Because I have done several shows in OCP, particularly my first one, where I used 10 short hairs in my OCP ring because the long hairs just weren't up to snuff in that particular set of competition. Is this going to take away that ability for a judge to put one particular division up?
It's not for the OCPC.
I'm gonna let Ed answer the question, then I'll call on Daryl and Mary Lee. Ed?
My understanding, based on conversation with the committee and at the October board meeting, was that if the judge is doing OCP as part of a regular ring, not a freestanding ring, the judge will award the normal specialty ribbons and then do a top 10 all breed. To my way of thinking, you could ignore your top 3 long hairs and do 10 short hairs in your all breed final.
I'm talking about specifically the OCP ring.
Correct. In your all breed.
And I'm an all breed judge, and obviously, if I put up 10 short hairs, the top 3 short hairs in my OCP ring will indeed be my top 3 short hairs in my regular all breed final.
Correct.
Does this rule say I have to put up my top 3 short, long hairs in that OCP ring?
No.
No.
So you're gonna hang top 3 short hairs, top 3 long hairs, and then you're gonna do your top 10 all breed champions. Those top 10 could be all short hairs.
Okay.
Obviously, the
So
1,
what
2, and 3
we're
need to be 1, 2,
doing,
and 3 in that order, but
all right. So just so I have this straight, I can hang top 10 short hairs. They're all champions. This is a separate scored ring. And in addition to that, have an additional 3 cats, naming my top 3 long hairs. Is that going to be a requirement that they need to be brought up during the OCP ring according to this rule?
No, that's not how I rated this.
yeah, my understanding is if you are judging OCP as part of your regular ring, you're judging all classes throughout the entire show.
No, I understand.
Right.
That. And when you bring in a separate judge, it's not a problem.
Yep.
But if we're going to treat the OCP rings the same as bringing in a regular judge or an additional judge, then it seems to me that you're just putting up champions, regardless of division. And that's the way it should be. Now, mechanically, your choices should match your regular all breed final. But the way I read this rule is that there's a requirement to use 3 of each. And in a case of 85 plus entries, 5 of each in your OCP ring. That's the way I read it. But then again, I may be reading it wrong. That's why I'm asking for an explanation.
Okay. Mary Lee?
Yes, so the way I see it is you have to award your top 3 of each. So you're going to have top 3 long hairs, or in the case of a show that has 85 and championship, top 5 long hair champions. But they don't have to be your top 10 champions in your OCP ring. So essentially you could bring up 10 short hair cats. And then if you were at a show count that had over 85, you would still have to award 5 long hair champions, but they don't have to be in your top 10 champions. Does that make sense?
Well, it may make sense, but it may not be what Kenny is accepting based on what's written.
What I'm reading, I'm sorry to interrupt, and I should raise my hand. The way it's written to me is that there is a requirement to put both long and short hairs in your OCP final. And that to me is not the intent of the ring. The ring should be a reflection of the competition, regardless if the strength is in one or the other. And I just like a little bit more clarification. I am confused as to the way this is written.
All right, Kenny, let me ask you a question.
If I can award, 5 long hairs and not have them in my top 10 OCP final, I'd be more than happy to do that. But again, I want some clarification as to, and I want the opportunity, because to me, OCP is more exciting. We can go deep into long hairs, we can go deep into short hairs, depending upon the competition that's present and competing.
Kenny, let me ask you a question before I call on Daryl and Pam Delabar. Are you unable to vote on number 7 without understanding number 9?
Correct.
Okay, so that's why we're having this discussion. Okay, Daryl?
Okay, the way I read this, and I was like Kenny, I was very confused. Okay, because you've got less than 85 cats competing and more than 85 cats competing. The way I read this is that you name 10 all breeds, doesn't matter how many cats are there, if there's less or more than 85. The only thing that changes, if there's more than 85, you have to name best through 5th long hair, best through 5th short hair. And you could have those 5 short hairs plus 5 more short hairs in your all breed champions, is the way I read it. It's the way we do it now. If we're not doing an OCP ring and we have 5 longs and 5 shorts, if there's more than 85 cats, you could name all short hairs or all long hairs as your best all breed. So I see this only as an extension of taking it to 10, and you might have 3, you name your 5 long hairs, but maybe you use 1 or 2 long hairs and the rest of the 10 are short hairs. That's the way I read it.
Okay, Pam Delabar, do you agree with Daryl?
Yes, what Daryl said.
Okay. So if I understand what Daryl, Marilee, and Pam all agree to, that is the opposite of what Kenny is reading. Is that correct?
No, not at all. I mean, I understand that. I can put up 10 short hairs. And then name, in addition, if I don't have to name my long hairs until I get into my regular all breed final. Does this require me to name my top 3 short long hairs?
And I think Ed is saying, no, you do not. Mike?
I think what might be part of the confusion here is the terms OCP ring versus OCP final. The way I interpret the way this is written is in an OCP ring, which is judged as part of an existing ring, the finals awards for champions, which is all one final. This is not a separate OCP final versus the championship final or regular ring final. That first, second, and third long hair and short hair is part of the existing ring final. And then the OCP is the top 10 all breed on top of that. So you have to do your top 3 or top 5 long hair and short hair because you're judging a regular ring. That's just part of the regular ring judging. And then OCP is always by definition top 10 all breed. So you call up whatever you need to fill up that top 10 all breed in your view.
Ed and Carol, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, that was the intent of the rule as I wrote it was as Marilee and Pam and Daryl have explained it.
long as that's,
Actually, Carol, oh, okay.
Go ahead, Carol.
When I first read it, I was a little confused myself, but then I read it again and I realized what was being said. I'm wondering if perhaps we should break it up into two separate paragraphs. If that might help clarify for people what occurs in an OCP final as to what occurs, as opposed to what occurs in a normal ring final. I don't know, that's just a suggestion. I'm interested to hear if anybody likes that idea or not.
Okay, Kathy Cohen.
Yeah, I echo what Carol said, that it was exactly what I was going to suggest when I raised my hand before Carol got her hand up. I think breaking it up, this paragraph up, and perhaps even making bold where you're talking about OCP ring as opposed to an OCP final would help provide some clarity.
Yeah, I mean, the distinction here is between an OCP ring that is judged as part of an existing ring and one that is judged as a standalone ring. The last sentence of this paragraph, which is, this whole paragraph is a separate paragraph. It is not part of the paragraph that precedes it on the prior page. Only that last sentence applies to an OCP ring that is judged as a standalone ring.
Carol?
Did you say Carol or Daryl?
Carol?
Okay.
Daryl?
My suggestion would be to expand a little bit on what Carol said. And that would be, I think this really needs to be 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph should say, in an OCP ring with less than 85 entries, blah, blah, blah. And then divide it into a ring with 85 or more entries and the rest of it. And then put the last sentence as a single paragraph in an OCP ring, which is judged in a standalone ring. Then you're just awarding best through 10th, best all breed champion.
Okay, Pam Delabar.
Basically what Daryl said, but I would like to see these sections all on OCP be written in the context of, this is what you do if with a standalone OCP ring. This is what you do if you have an all breed ring with OCP and you're under 85 entries. This is what you do there. If you are in an all breed ring with OCP and you have 85 or more, I would divide it up that way, which I think would be a lot clearer, and people could target the situation that they're actually, experiencing.
Okay, before I call on Carol, I'm going to ask Ed and Carol, does this mean we should table number 7, number 8, and number 10?
Mm-hmm.
Carol and then Ed?
Yes, I was going to suggest that we table this rule in particular. I'm not sure how it affects the others. We'd have to go back and look at them, but this one definitely needs to be tabled so that we can work on the
So when you say this one, you're talking about number 10, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Ed, do you think then we need to table 7 and 8 if we're going to table 10? You're on mute.
10 focuses on the placements to be awarded, and simply that. The other amendments that come before deal with other parts of the rule dealing with OCP. If you want to table them all and just deal with it as a package, you can do that. But I don't think that the content of those rules hinges on the language of this particular rule.
Okay. I'm going to be more comfortable whatever the majority of the board feels comfortable with. If you want to table 7, 8, and 10. Let's have a motion to table 7, 8, and 10 and bring it back as a package in February.
We want to table 9.
Does 9 also need to be tabled?
Well, you get OCP goes all the way from 7 through 12.
7 through 12?
Yep.
Okay, Rachel?
That was going to be my suggestion also,
Was what? What
to
was your
table
suggestion?
all the rules relating to OCP rings.
Number 7 through 12?
Correct.
Okay, are you making that motion?
I am so moved.
Okay, I need a second.
Russell seconds.
Okay, Carol and Paula, you agree?
Yes, I agree.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, any objections? Daryl, I saw you had your hand up. Did you want to comment?
I was gonna make the,
What, did you say Carol or Daryl?
Daryl,
I didn't have anything more to say.
okay. All right, seeing no objections, we're gonna table 7 through 12.
A question before I bring these back in February, other than the changes to number 10, did anyone spot anything that is objectionable in the others? So that I can address it.
Kenny, did you spot anything else that was of concern?
You know, everything else was perfect, Ed. Thank you.
Okay, Daryl?
I just want to point out that we talked about the championship part, but the last part of that was in the premierships, and it's the same issue there as we had in the championship.
Okay, and does anybody else have any other issues or comments? Okay, let's move on to 13, Ed.
Okay, 13, we are now talking about the addenda, not the permanent show rules. But the addenda, we're asked to bring forth the extension of the addenda that allows up to 50% guest judges in Region 9 in the International Division for the 2024-25 show season. I've reworded that addenda to make it clearer, because the current language kind of says extend something. Let's just state what the addenda is.
Okay, Pam Delabar, do you have comments on this?
No, this is exactly what I wanted. Thanks, Ed.
Okay. Discussion? Objections? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
14.
Number 14, extending the waiver of show rule 4.03, which allows canceled shows during the next show season will not count against a club's traditional date.
Pam Delabar, you're on this one also. Comments?
This particularly affects both Region 9 and parts of the ID. So I think that this would be a great thing to have. COVID may be not the cause, but we have other worldwide situations that are causing clubs to lose their dates or not be able to have shows at this moment.
So Ed, as the show rule is written, this applies to regions 1 through 9 and all of the ID, correct?
This particular addenda applies to all of CFA.
Everyone.
Yeah. 1 through
Okay.
9 as well.
Okay, just want to be clear on that. Okay, discussion? Objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. think Pam Mosier had to leave. We just want to make sure that she's aware of this. I'm sure she will be.
Mhm.
Okay. Number 15.
Number 15, extends the show license late fee exception for regions 8, 9, and portions of the international division. Is extended through next season.
Okay, Pam Delabar. Any comments?
Nope,
Okay,
except we know that mainland China now has 21 days, so
Right.
but that doesn't affect this. This is to allow those areas 30 days.
right, right. Okay, Kathy Calhoun.
So, yeah, so my question was, is that inconsistent? Because it
No,
says which,
because
no?
the addendum excludes China, Hong Kong,
Okay.
and Macau. So they're still at whatever the show rule says.
All right. Thank you.
Which that's the new show rule that we just passed this evening, which will
21
start
days.
in the beginning, May 1, 2024, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Number 16.
Number 16, I was asked to bring forward the addenda that extends the reduced point and ring minimums for national awards for the 2024-25 show season. I have done that, but in the rationale, I asked central office for some information on how many points did the 25th best cat earn in each of the various cat classes and areas. James Simbro very graciously provided that. And I've given you an analysis here. The 25th best cat in all categories, in all regions, all areas, would not have reached the minimums in the permanent show rules. But when you compare the 25th best cat's points to the minimums provided in the addendum, for China and the ID, it's pretty close. They're over the minimum, but not by a lot. But when you look at regions 1 through 9, the 25th best cat achieved at least 259% of the addendum minimum. In my mind, that makes the addendum minimum somewhat useless because no, in those regions. So I included a suggestion that you might want to consider raising the minimum for just tripling the minimums for championship, premiership, and household pets, and doubling the minimum for kittens in regions 1 through 9, while leaving China and the ID the same.
Okay, Pam Delabar.
I have to disagree with Ed. I don't know. Region 8 and Region 9 can only earn, well, for regional points, can only earn points in our own regions. We do not have the chance of jumping here and there, wherever, to go get points for national wins, except for a very few people. Our 25th best cat had 459.7 points. Nowhere near any of your averages here. Our best kitten, our second best kitten had 304, 25th best kitten had 304.75 points. And we didn't even have a 25th through 21st best premiership because of not having the amount of points needed for a regional win. So this, by jacking up these points, takes away a lot of motivation for people to get out and show and possibly show towards these national awards. And I hope to God we don't mess with the regional points anymore. leaving them as they are for another year won't hurt us. I mean, people are going to be out there, they're going to be showing, and if they think they got enough points to get a national win on this cat, well, then maybe they can bring out another cat and yet another cat. But let's leave it as it is, please.
Kathy Dunham, looks like you requested this.
I did.
Comments?
I agree with Pam on this. And in fact, I would really prefer to see the regional points reduced back and let the regional directors determine those points. It used to be that in my own region, the regional points, there was not a limit that had to be earned to get an award. And I can tell you right now, in my region today, I don't have a full slate of 25 championship cats. Barely have a slate in championship and kittens. So I would prefer to see the regional points eliminated and let the regional directors make those choices. But the national points, I would like to leave the way they are.
Okay. Any for John Clilla?
We don't, like Kathy said, we used to not have a minimum of points that are earning a regional award. We just automatically, whoever at the top 25, that's it. I like to see it that way.
You'd like to see what way, John? No minimum points?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to call the question. If you're in favor of this motion, the show rule as written, raise your hand. And leave your hand up until I call your name. I'm sorry, leave your hand up until I call everyone's name and instruct you to lower your hand. Pam Delabar, Mike Shelton, Carol Krasnowski, Daryl Newkirk, Marilee Griswold, Kathy Calhoun, Holly Hootenami, Ann Mathis, Rachel Anger, Kenny Curley, Yokiko Hayata, Kathy Dunham. Lower your hand, please. If you're opposed, raise your hand. No one is opposed. John Clilla. If you're an abstention, raise your hand. John, lower your hand. If you're an abstention, raise your hand. Rachel, no abstentions.
I did not receive a vote from Paula Noble or Russell Webb.
Paula, are you a yes or a no?
Sorry, coming in the way we came in, none of my buttons are in the same place.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, I vote against it.
Okay, so you're opposed. Okay.
Yes.
Russell, are you in favor or opposed?
I was in favor.
Okay. Thank you. Rachel, go ahead.
That's 13 yes, 2 no, 0 abstentions. We are not getting votes from Pam Moser at this point. So that's why the number of votes has changed.
So we still must be missing somebody else because 13 and 2 is only 15. Pam Moser 16, somebody else you didn't get.
We don't have a Region 1 director.
Oh, thank you for pointing that out. So then we got to correct one of the motions earlier that I think you stated 17, maybe.
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that one.
we'll have to correct that one. Okay.
Yep, and that voting went too fast, so I couldn't catch them all. Sorry.
Okay. All right, so that motion passes. And Pam Delabar, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. And I would like to recommend that maybe we regional directors try to get a Zoom call together, maybe over the holidays where everybody is more laid back and we can decide possibly what we can propose in February for whether we want any kind of point limitations on our regional awards or not. And I think we can get online with the board and possibly on the board list, excuse me, and come up with some recommendations to give to the board in February at the February board meeting.
Okay, just some advice, Pam, for you and the rest of the regional directors on that. If you want a motion presented to the board that you want passed, work with Ed so he can get it and start writing what you want, so we're not creating it after February. If you can do that, that would be great.
I think that we would be meeting in enough time to be able to coordinate with Ed. That would be no problem.
Great, thank you. Ed, I think we're on number 17.
We are, which I believe is the last of the addenda. And that is a request to extend the waiver of the requirement that cats be shown in the region of residence in order to earn a DW in China for the 2024-2025 season.
Hey, Kathy Calhoun.
Yes, this particularly impacts North China, where they may have 1 or 2 shows a season, and particularly even more specific, a kitten that is a resident in North China could completely could not have any shows to attend through their kitten campaign. So we would just like to, while we start to continue to try to grow that area, we would just like to extend the waiver for another year.
Discussion? Objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Before we let Ed go on this, does anyone have any questions or comments for Ed? Okay, Ed, thank you.
Sure. Just wanted to point out there is one existing addenda that no one asked to be brought forward, and that is the modification of the requirements for grand points in certain geographic areas. So just calling out that no one asked for that. It was not brought forward. It expires.
Okay, Kathy Calhoun.
You can expect something before February.
Okay.
Ed, that's being very proactive. Pam Delabar.
I actually thought that those point minimums were going to be part of the permit show rules that we passed at
I think many of them
October.
are, but I did not compare them line by line to make sure they all were.
Then I think that between Kathy and I, we can compare them line by line, because she's got some and I've got some. And
yes,
to make sure that they are in the show rules. Kathy and I can work together. Thank you.
Okay, great. Carol, you're tasked to work with Ed on this too. I know there's a lot of things that were tabled and that needs to come back for February.
Yes.
So between you and Ed and then everybody else who's going to work on some of the other ones, the one that Pam Delabar said and Kathy said,
yes.
Let's make sure we get them all. That'd be great. Ed, do you have anything else?
That is it.
Okay, Ed and Carol, thank you very much, and thank you to your committee. We're going to move on to number 5, marketing. Aline, can you bring Desiree in?
He's in.
Oh, hi, Desiree.
Hi, Rich. Hi, everybody.
All right.
Oh, there you are. I see you now.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay.
Take us through your report quickly.
Okay.
I see you have no motions.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
So the committee, Mark, Melanie, myself, and Aline wanted to give you guys an update on the website. So hopefully you read what's there. It's coming along. We expect to launch phase 1 in January. It's broken up in multiple phases because there's different components like the blog, a tool to find a breed, and different things. So we're going to roll it out a little bit at a time. So we just wanted to let you know that and find out if anyone has any questions regarding that. And if
Anybody have
not,
any questions? Okay,
okay, great. And then another project we've been working on for quite a while now is our logo system family. As you know, we have the new logo and the logo for all the programs. And now we have come to the logos for the member clubs and for the licensed shows. We kind of put a little bit about the licensed show out a while ago to see how clubs liked using it. And it seems like many have taken a grasp to it and have been using that on their show flyers. So now we're making it official. We're making a couple different ones, the stacked version and the long version. So the licensed show logo is what clubs will use when they're promoting show related things. And then the member club is when they're promoting their club. Like it doesn't say their club on it, but if they have a logo with their club name on it, they might put that next to it. And this is to really separate what CFA corporate is from the arms and legs of CFA. So CFA corporate will be the ones that are using the CFA logo ourselves on anything that comes out of central office, but we're making logos for everyone else to use that really identifies them. So the member club logo, the licensed show logo, and then our future plans we're working on now are logos for the regions. So those will all be one color. We're trying to decide exactly what color looks great. And they'll have the region name and number on it. So we'll be reaching out to the regional directors with those to have discussions if it works for them. So, and all of this will be documented as well. We'll be updating the website to explain more on how to use these and why to use these.
before you go on, Desiree, questions on this specific, Ed Raymond?
Yeah, the question about the CFA licensed show logo. The show rule actually specifies that the CFA logo be used. Do we need to alter the language of the show rule to?
Okay, so that was going to be my question to you for show rules, Chair. What in the show rules has to be changed that specifies use of the new designated logo? And then question to Shelley, what needs to be changed in the bylaws, if anything exists, on what is allowed for regions and clubs to use the CFA logo. So we're going to have to look at show rules and bylaws if this is going to be an implemented policy approved by the board. Ed first and then Kenny.
Mine was just a question. I think the there's really, as far as I know, only one provision, and that deals with what goes on the show flyer. That I think we would have to reword the language a bit.
Okay. Kenny?
Yeah, very quickly. We have a lot of older clubs that still have the older logo. Specifically, would they still be able to use those materials?
They still have the old CFA logo.
Yes, on a lot of their advertisement banners.
Yeah.
I understand we want to transition, but I don't want them to get in trouble for using an older logo.
Yeah. Correct. Maybe Mark can speak to this a little bit more, but I recall our conversation when we first implemented the new logo that we said we weren't printing anything more with the old logo on it, but if we had assets that still had the old logo, that those were fine to use. I'm not sure if we have a timeline on that. Maybe Mark or Eileen or Melanie we can discuss that more, but.
Okay, let me call on Mark and then Kathy Dunham. Mark?
That's correct. When we rolled out the new logos, we stipulated that for anything new that was printed had to use the new ones, but any existing stuff they had, they didn't have to redo them. So if you're doing a flyer, you want to use the new logo because it's a new flyer. If you've got, some banners or something that you've used for years with the old logo, you can continue to use those.
Okay. Kathy Dunham?
Yeah, Ed, you might want to look at the show rule that talks about what has to be on the front of a show catalog as well.
Okay, thank you.
Because it does talk about the logos there too.
Okay.
That's all.
Mark Cannon, do you have more comments? Kenny, I saw you had your hand up after Mark. Do you have a question or a comment?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Shelley?
So I guess I'm confused about why you're like promoting the words licensed show. I mean, at least in the United States, we have rules about whether you can use someone's logo, which means that organization has supported or provided the right to use the logo. And I'm not sure, I guess I'm just wondering, how does this help? And then also I'm trying to figure out if I like it in terms of what's the liability. I understand that we have an internal process for what a licensed show is, but what if any additional liability is this going to be to CFA? I mean, that we're broadcasting that this is a licensed show. Is there other organizations using in like the dog world or other cat organizations that are using their logos and saying the words licensed show? I mean, I'm just wondering what the point of that is, but I haven't fully thought about it because this is kind of the first real time that I'm wondering, like, is there any liability or something associated with that?
Mark?
I don't see how this is any different than what we've already done where we have programs underneath the Cat Fanciers Association. It might say, mentoring program or whatever. So in regard to Shelley's comment about taking the logo and adjusting it like this, the reason we decided to do this was to make it very obvious that this was not CFA producing the show, it was a local club producing it, but it was licensed through our association.
Shelley, I don't know if that changes your mind at all.
I guess I don't know. I'm just trying to look at it from an end user perspective, like what they're going to think that a licensed show means. I mean, they're probably not even going to know what any of that means, except the word show. I just don't know that they understand that. I think that I like it from a standpoint in understanding that CFA is, I guess, providing some sort of license that allows the show to be put on and sanctioned using their trademark, but I'm just a little I'm just a little surprised at it, and I'm not sure how or why it's really a thing, but I just have to think about it a little bit.
Okay, Daryl?
So I'd like to know when and where this particular logo about licensed shows would be used. I mean, we have to put the logo, the CFA logo on the flyers. We have to put it on our show catalog. But are we going to, on those two places, are we going to put licensed show? What if the show's not even licensed yet?
This licensed show logo would replace the CFA logo that you're using now. So on the show flyer, instead of having the CFA logo, which implies it could be a CFA corporate produced show, it will indicate that it's CFA, but it's a licensed show. So I don't think there's going to be use of the CFA logo for any show assets except in the rosettes and awards.
Mark?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Shelley taking her time to do a little bit of research on this. What we had proposed to do was when a show is licensed to have the club notified, provided with this logo and tell them when where they should be using it, such as on the catalog cover and the flyer. Potentially maybe even in advertisements. Right now, I think we require clubs that advertise their show for gate to use the logo.
Daryl?
I personally think, based on what Desiree said, to me, this looks like CFA has licensed the show, not the club. It's just the opposite of what you're trying to tell everybody.
No, we're saying that CFA licensed the show. It says Cat Fanciers Association's licensed show. I don't think too many people would be confused thinking it was the club that licensed the show. The club is producing the show, but through a license that we granted them.
Okay, well, that's not the way I understood what Desiree said.
Desiree, do you disagree with me?
No, I agree with you. I'm just wondering, maybe I misworded something when I answered Daryl's question. Yeah, maybe I answered you wrong, Daryl, if you didn't understand. So just to state it again, I think your question was, it sounded like you were wondering if we are going to have both the regular CFA logo on the catalogs and such, and then have this one next to it. Is that kind of what your question was?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think that this is in your palette of different logos that we can use. That's the way I understand it. Okay. So are you saying that this is replacing the actual logo we're going to use from now on? And it's always going to say Cat Fanciers Association licensed show?
So there's the regular CFA logo that's used by the corporate office for any of our marketing purposes and letterhead and all that stuff. But when the promotional item is for a show itself, then this is the logo that would be used. So for instance, like the show flyer, instead of just having the regular CFA logo on there, you would have the CFA licensed show, either the long format or the stacked format, which indicates it's CFA, but it's also a licensed show. So, and it's not just CFA corporate who, when you have a flyer and you put a logo on that, that kind of gives ownership to whatever it is that you're marketing. So when a club is creating a flyer for a show, it's CFA isn't putting on that show it's a CFA licensed show put on by a club. So this indicates that it just really specifies who owns the activity that's being promoted.
Okay, Mark, you still have your hand up. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't see this as any different than, for example, agility. We have the Cat Fanciers Association, and underneath it says agility, and it's in a specific color. For shows, clubs that are producing shows, they would use this particular logo on materials that they produce, for example, their flyer. If CFA is putting out something, it would not have licensed show under it. It would just say since 1906 or we know cats, the various logos that we already have in existence. Our plan had been from the very start to use the CFA logo in a number of different ways, such as licensed shows. We started with the programs and we're expanding it to the regions and to some other things.
Daryl, do you have additional comments?
I do. So you're basically saying then clubs cannot produce a show flyer until they license the show and use this logo. That's the bottom line.
I guess our shows are flyers created before a show is licensed.
Okay. Pam's shaking her head yes.
Okay.
Kathy Dunham is shaking her head yes.
Okay.
Pam Delabar. You're on mute, Pam.
sorry about that. The show flyer must be submitted with the show license. So it is already in existence before CFA central office puts its stamp on the license.
Okay, so we have to go back and.
That's not true. That's not true.
No, okay.
You can license the show 6 months out, but you don't have to provide a flyer until 90 days out. And
Yes.
in fact, you can produce the flyer or produce the license later than that and pay a penalty. You know, it doesn't have to go with the license. It only has to go with the license if it's within 90 days of the show.
Okay, Shelley?
Well, I would say you just have to have truth in advertising. So when the flyer is made, it has to have the words licensed show under it, if that's what you guys are adopting, if it's already licensed. So if it's not already licensed, you can't put that on the flyer. Now, that being said, if you're creating a flyer, but you're not handing it out until after you get licensure, then of course you can put the license show on it and say, this is going to be our flyer. You just can't hand it out and say it's a licensed show when it's not really licensed. So I don't know if that solves the problem. You know, it just can't get handed out with that logo on it.
Okay, Daryl?
And that was the point I was trying to make, because there are lots of clubs that put out pre-flyer notices. So it's still a flyer advertising the show, but it may be before the show gets licensed and the actual flyer gets developed. So what logo should we put on a pre-show flyer?
Okay, we'll leave that question out there. Pam Delabar?
I think we've gotten to the point where we're essentially pole vaulting over mouse turds on this. Way I was looking at it from my region is the fact that most of our shows go in right at 45 to 30 days prior to the opening day of the show. So yes, we are used to having to submit our flyers with our show licenses. And sometimes these flyers happen to be into the language of the country that is holding it, such as Finland for this past show last weekend. Then the Americanized version came out. But we're getting wrapped around the axle, and I don't want to think of any more little terms of endearment in coming up with this. But the marketing committee is letting us know that this is coming out, and I can think of all sorts of ways to use our regional logo on parts of a flyer, along with the CFA logo and the club logo. So, you know, we're going to end up with like 3 different logos on some of these flyers, but be that as it may, it gets CFA across.
Mark?
When a club creates a flyer, it's based on the assumption that the show they're advertising will be licensed. Correct? I don't see how putting this on the flyer is any different than putting out a flyer at anyway. You know, one assumes that the flyer means the show, if it isn't already licensed, will be licensed prior to the show.
Okay, I have 3 questions, and that could be to the entire board, or it could be specific to the marketing committee. The first question is, what happens if a club or a region does not use one of these new logos, CFA member club or licensed show? Is there a penalty? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is the marketing committee seeking approval from the board to adopt the use of these required logos for the clubs and the region? And then question 3 is, if the answer to question 2 is yes, when are you going to bring it to the board for approval? So, as I said, questions could be for the board, or they could be for the marketing committee. Mark?
Speaking for the committee, What's the penalty now if you don't use the CFA license, logo?
Is there going to be a penalty if they don't use the logo that you are proposing?
We're not proposing a penalty any more than if you fail to use the logo. I mean, George used to point out that if you look for a violation at any show, you can find one.
Right.
You know, and that doesn't mean that penalties are being addressed or that there's a protest is being filed. You know, the clubs are going to be told this is what you're supposed to use, and we're assuming that the majority of the clubs are going to follow the rules.
Okay. And then is the marketing committee coming to the board for approval?
No, we were sharing information.
Okay. Shelley?
I just want to reiterate that truth in advertising laws are really important. I really do not believe that it is appropriate to say something is licensed if it hasn't and disseminate that information in a flyer if it hasn't actually happened. That I just think that CFA shouldn't say that until it's happened.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, Desiree, continue.
And the last thing was the regional logos, which I just mentioned, and that this will be documented on the website so that the clubs and the show producers are able to understand the usage information, and that's it.
Okay, does anybody have any additional questions for Desiree or Mark? Okay, thanks Desiree and Mark.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now we're going on to agenda 6. Mark.
I'm back.
Publications.
Okay, I assume everybody's read the report. At the end of the report, it talks about we're doing away with, we're not reprinting any additional individual breed profiles or brochures. And Annette asked a question about, will we provide a template to the individual breed councils to use if they want to print their own? And that's something we'll be happy to discuss. Does anybody have any questions about the report?
No questions, Mark.
Thank you.
Great job to the committee on the yearbook and the all-in-one breed brochure.
Thanks a lot.
That was great. Thank you. You did that very quickly. On to agenda item number 7. Ed, you're back.
I'm back again. Won't be quite as quick as Mark because we've got a couple of action items. I won't read the report to you, assume you've all read it. And the action items, I believe Rachel is going to make the motion. One is to approve the format of the 2024 show, which is scheduled for October 12th and 13th, 2024 at the IX Center in Cleveland. And the second motion is to approve the awarding of top 15 cats, top 5 champions, top 3 premieres without regard to number of cats entered.
Rachel, do you have standing motion on both? You're on mute.
Yeah, I'll make a standing motion on both of the motions in this report.
Okay, may I have a second?
Russell seconds.
Okay, Russell got the second. All right, is there any discussion on approve the format of 5 all breed and 3 specialty rings for each of the 2 shows in 2024? Mike?
I was actually moving on to the next one, on the top 15. But I just want to clarify, that means we are moving away from top 20 kittens, which is what we have been doing recently, and going to top 15 kittens.
That is correct.
Okay.
Carol?
Yes, in addition to kittens, I'm wondering about household pets. What are the numbers going to be for household pets?
I believe we did top 15 this year. But we would do that again.
Pam Delabar?
Where does it state in item number 2 that kittens are also going to be top 15? It only says cats and champions and top premiers. Nothing about kittens in there.
You are correct. I assume that cats included kittens and household pets.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's finish up on number one, and then we'll do number two. And I think, Rachel, you're gonna have to amend number two. I heard kittens need to be added, household pets need to be added. So on number one, is there any further discussion on the format of 5 all breed and 3 specialty rings for each of the 2 shows? Any objections? Okay, seeing no objections, motion 1 passes unanimously. Okay, now on number 2, Rachel, can you state the revised motion?
Yes, I'd like to revise that to say approve the awarding of the top 15 cats, kittens, premiership, and household pets. So
And
top 15 and then goes on to read the champions and premiers.
okay. Ed, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Russell, you agree?
Yes.
Okay, Carol Krasnowski?
I thought we mentioned top 20 kittens, did we not mention that?
No, Mike had mentioned that we were replacing top 20 with top 15, and I believe Ed agreed or said that that was correct. Mike, was that your original question?
Yes, it was.
Okay, you weren't making a recommendation to do top 20, correct?
No, I was
Okay.
just making sure that there were no oversights.
Yep, okay, that's how I understood. Pam Delabar?
Well, having done this last show, why does the committee want to cut back kittens to a top 15 instead of the top 20?
We heard from some judges that they had difficulty finding that many top 20 kittens with sufficient merit that they wanted to hang on.
I had more than enough.
Mark, were you going to comment? You had your hand up. No, okay, Daryl?
Well, my question was the same one Pam had. That's why I mean, I agree with Pam. I had more than 20 cats that I felt worthy of a final.
Okay.
I think this is really going to set up a big complaint from the people who consume our shows, especially this one. It's a huge show. There's lots of kittens, and I'm surprised that anybody that judged that show felt like there weren't 20 worthy kittens to hang on.
Mark?
I repeat what Ed said. We received input from judges. They didn't want to do 20. They didn't have 20 they felt that deserved to be in the finals. And as George used to say, it really impacts the national kitten wins. You know, if you're not at that show and we're giving out all these extra points, that's something.
Okay. Ann?
Did I unmute? Yes. I know there were a lot. I was out and about because I judged Friday. The kitten exhibitors seem to love those extra placements.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Kenny? You're on mute, Kenny.
Sorry about that. This is a major show. People come there, they spend a lot of money. They have an opportunity to get recognized. We as judges, regardless of what some judges think, should be able to recognize them in a top 20. I would support top 20.
Okay. Pam Delabar?
As I remember, I think I had 26 numbers down that I had to wheedle down to 20 for an Albury ring because of the quality. And then I had the audacity of people not showing up for the final, which is another point, but be that as it may, with the beginning of the report saying the sound system is going to be improved for this next show. Hopefully that won't be a problem this coming year. But I'm all favor for top 20 kittens. We used to do in the day top 20 long hair, top 20 short hair kittens. And if you had a turnaround ring, you were doing 667 cats in 2 days. So let's at least keep the kitten numbers up.
Okay, Kathy Calhoun,
Yeah, I would be strongly in favor of going top 20 kittens.
okay.
I had no
Rachel?
problem.
Rachel,
So may I amend that motion to read, approve the awarding of top 20 kittens, top 15 championship, premiership and household pets, and then goes on to the top 5 champions, top 3 premiers, and so on.
so you can make that amendment to the motion. However, I don't know if the CFA International Show Committee is in agreement with that. And
Okay.
maybe what the best thing to do is call for the vote on the motion that you presented. And if you're not in favor and you want 20, then come back with your amended motion, Rachel.
Okay.
Daryl?
The board of directors makes the rules and does the policy. I get that the committee could have input, but we make the motions. So I think what Rachel has done, and Shelley can correct me if I'm wrong, but we can amend any motion that gets put in front of us.
And I don't disagree with that, Daryl. Shelley, do you want to comment on it?
No, I didn't know there was a disagreement. So I think we're in agreement. Anybody, you guys can move to amend any motion that's before you.
Yeah, and I was only making the recommendation as out of respect to the committee to do what I had suggested. And as I said there, I don't disagree with you. I always like to try to support the committee unless they are absolutely 100% wrong, then I won't support them. But I will do, Rachel, what it's your motion, so.
Okay, thank you. And no disrespect to the committee, of course, for.
You just accidentally hit yourself on mute, Rachel.
for
You're still in mute.
Sorry.
You're gonna have to repeat what you said.
I would like to.
Go ahead.
No disrespect to the committee. It just seemed that the discussion was heading that way. I was trying to save time and it has backfired and now we're going around in circles. So I can do it either way, which either way is most respectful and efficient.
Daryl?
I have no disrespect for the committee. Okay, the committee works their asses off to produce a fantastic show. The show this last year, we hadn't had one, I think, in 3 or 4 years. Came off great. Great cats. It was a lovely time. Had a great time. But I still say that the board makes the motions and amendments. And Rachel has made this motion and I will second it.
Okay. Motion is second by Daryl. Rachel made an amended motion. 20 kittens. And then top 20 for kittens, top 15 for everything else. Any further discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Okay. Ed, do you have anything further?
I do not.
Does anybody have anything further for Ed? Okay, very good. Thank you, Ed, and thank you to the committee. We're going to move on to number 8, IT.
Okay,
James?
so thanks for everyone. I just want to make a correction. The compiled reports contain the wrong IT report. I had inadvertently sent Rachel the December 2022 report. So Aline here has the correct one. Really, it's just a short update on what we were calling CSU 2022. It was asked, we came up with a new name, which we really kind of tossed back and forth, and ECAT version 2.0 is what we've, kind of settled on, because that is really what this is. So the system update's going to be called ECAT version 2.0. We've seen a lot of progress on that. We've been testing. We're getting ready to work on, well, actually scoring is underway right now for December, and that's the last major module to be converted. We will begin some user acceptance testing for ECAT. We've identified 4 or 5 people, I think, Aline and I've identified some people to look at this with us and get their input on screen layouts and how the whole thing flows on ECAT. So there's that, as progress is made on that. The launch, we realized, launching this at the end of 2023 here in December, January would just be not a good idea. So we're looking at doing final user acceptance testing this first 2 weeks of January, with a official launch mid-January for the whole system on that. So that's where we are on that. Genetics, we're still working on. Heather Lorimer was gracious enough to, or not Heather Lorimer, Lorraine Shelton was gracious enough to help us out with some test cases that we're using to test the data and the logic. So that's still in progress. Any questions on either of those?
Kathy Cahoon?
My recollection may be incorrect, but I thought in October we talked about Heather and her applying her expertise to the genetics program, and there was some conversation about the fact that we kind of had to, work within her time schedule because she was retired and had other things to do. And we talked about getting a quote from her to find out if, in fact, what would it take to have some dedication
Yeah,
to this project. Whatever happened with that?
Really no progress happened with that. So yeah, we thought Heather was going to be able to work with us on some of the data verification, and things just weren't progressing to the speed that we needed to do. So when Lorraine she'd sent an email, I forget when it was, it was right before she was going to be in town. It was right before the international show. She was going to be in town, but we didn't have time to meet with her because we were still prepping for the show. I reached out to her shortly afterwards to talk to her about what we could do as far as verifying data, and that's when we came up with these test cases where we can really pinpoint. That's the thing we kept running into. There were so many variables. We really needed to work this down to one test case to verify that the logic and the data were working together.
So just to be clear, in October, we said we were going to try and contract her to do this work. And so that has not happened.
No.
And is there an intent for that to happen?
Not at this point.
Right.
Okay, additional questions for James? Aline?
Nothing.
James, are we on budget or under budget for the upgrade?
As of right now, we were under budget.
Okay.
We've not gotten, they've done a ton of work that they haven't billed us for right now, so I'm kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. But he is committed to being, on budget.
Okay, he's committed to being on budget. All right. Aline, were you going to say something?
That was it, just that they had told us that they would remain on budget. As far as we're concerned.
James, when the new system is rolled out, are you going to retire the old system, or is the old system going to be needed?
It'll be retired. There's not really, I don't know if I would call it retiring. It's kind of a lateral move. It's, we're not really, this isn't a rewrite of the whole system. It's a, kind of more of a conversion. So there really the data structure, we're not changing any of that really. I mean, there's been some data cleanup and simplified some of our storage, but yeah, there's no You know, they certainly could turn on the old system if we really had to, but there's really
Okay.
there's no intention now. It's
Colleen,
not,
were you gonna say something?
I was just saying, we're basically turning off one system, turning on the other. Not that the other system goes away, but there's no intention of running them in tandem.
Okay, I asked the question because when we had the old system and the new system, we had the old system for years while running the new system.
yeah, it's because they were working on a different database. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a different animal in this case.
Okay, well, thanks for explaining that. Does anybody have any other questions for James? Okay, James, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item 9, experimental formats. Rachel?
Yeah, that's me. And let me scroll down here as well. I did a summary of what's been happening with the committee. And as you know, we just reviewed the rules proposals, which we tabled. So if we can go right down to the motion, I will not be withdrawing it, and I'll be presenting it at this time to allow the Cat Week at Daytona Beach Cat Show to have 2 OCP rings, one each day, at their planned show in September 2024 in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Penny, are you seconding this motion?
Absolutely, and you're all invited to come.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Kathy?
I don't have any objections. I just have a question that we do have all the confidence that we're going to resolve all our questions in February, and that this will move forward as an accepted format. Is there any reason for us to doubt that?
Rachel?
None, but I'm sure the club would like to get their show production planning underway. This is a big show.
Rachel, I had no, don't get me wrong. I had no objection to that at all. Go for it. It's popular. I just wanted to find out if we felt confident that this was going to move forward, because we tabled it in October and now we're tabling it in December, and so.
Kenny?
Because we have folks in the ID that are really anxious as well, and we were trying to make sure that we had the rules in order and all the questions were answered before we move forward.
Okay, I'm sorry. We were in the middle of the motion, so I thought your comment was relating to the motion. So
Yeah, this is the lesser of two evils. We have 2 separate judges that we're bringing in. So we're not using any of the judges that'll be doing the regular show. And it is popular. And the only reason I objected to what was written in the rules is because it was confusing. And we just want to make sure, and I think the Show Rules Committee people will come back with a very, very easy way to read how these OCP rings should be held. And I'm confident in February, we'll be able to reach an agreement on that. So please just vote for this. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Kenny, lower your hand. Any objections to the motion? Okay, seeing no objections, motion passes unanimously. Rachel, continue.
that's all for my report. I would just like to respond to Kathy that I believe the board is in agreement conceptually about the OCP ring. We just need to, as Kenny said, clarify it so that our clubs know what they're doing. I don't think there's going to be any problem. My crystal ball and I don't.
Rachel, at the end of your report, last sentence before what will be presented at the next meeting, you state if the board of directors is in favor of such concept, the committee will begin proposal forward in February. So I asked the question to the board, does anybody object to what Rachel is proposing to do and present to us in February? Okay, Rachel, seeing no objections, then we look forward to your proposal come February.
Thank you. I can't wait.
All right. Well, thank you, Rachel. And let's see. Rachel, I think I got to come back to you. We have other committees.
There have been no other committee reports submitted.
Okay. And then our new business.
I think the one that was already presented or published is going into closed session, so then that just leaves, I guess, mine.
Yeah, the format change to a show.
Cleveland Persian Society, for their January show, they had licensed the show a month or so ago, and they had a 225 entry limit. They realized just yesterday that it should have been 175. The show hall that they're in for 2024 is a one-time only, and it's simply not large enough to accommodate 225 as they've had in the past, and they will have in the future, but 2024 can't accommodate that many entries. So they'd like to change their show entry limit to 175.
Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Kenny made the motion. May I have a second?
Delabar seconds.
Okay, Pam Delabar second. Any discussion? Any objections? Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right. Rachel, do we have, Eileen, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Rachel, do we have old business?
I have had no old business requests submitted.
Okay. Before we adjourn the meeting, does anybody have anything further? Okay, then I want to wish our CFA community family a wonderful holiday, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. The open session meeting is adjourned.